Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the head of sport in Anina Guardian, Shane Brophy. Shane, we'll start off with the sombre note this week that former Tipperary football manager Liam Kearns has passed away this weekend. You know, as it happens, Tipperary are playing the team that Kearns was managing up until passing away just the other day, Offaly. So in some ways it'll be a sombre occasion, albeit both teams really need the victory at the same time. But just your thoughts, and I know you're heading out to the funeral shortly up in Clonlara, but got a desperately sad situation and week, and a guy you know well enough.
Yeah, sure. Look, it was just surreal on Sunday night when word started to filter through, and I was saying to myself, if I saw this thing of Liam Kearns R.I.P., and I said, God, is there another famous Liam Kearns around the world that we didn't know of? And God, like, I think 61 years of age, like in the full of his health, I might believe. I from hearing people, like, he had lost weight recently. He was really hungry for this big gig up in Offaly, and from everything I was listening to from the Offaly side, I was thinking, God, this is exactly the same as what he did in Tipperary. He was building a great culture. It was a great sort of a club environment he was developing. Like, he was just got great charisma about him. Like, I suppose he was a funny character in a way. Sometimes you think he was ready to explode, but he never did. Like, he was full of a belief in his own ability, and just very, very sad, like, for his family, and I'm sure for everybody that knew him, like, from listening to the Limerick players that he worked with him. Didn't have a great time in Laois, but I suppose he was on a hiding to nothing there, replacing Mick O'Dwyer, like, and I suppose probably didn't give him enough of a chance. And I think he went to Aherlow, won a county championship with Aherlow, and like they were in the kick of a ball of beating Dr. Crokes in a Munster Club semi-final, and I think Crokes went on to win the All-Ireland. So just showed you he was always able to get the very, very max out of a group of players. He did it with Tip. Like, you think what he did in 2016 was incredible. Like he took that job in 2016, well, late 2015, thinking he had Colin O'Riordan, Stephen O'Brien, Liam Casey, Kevin Fahey, who else? Seamus Kennedy. And by the time, and then Clonmel won the Munster Club, which meant, so the first round of the league next year, he had so many players missing. It was crazy. But the ride they gave us to that All-Ireland semi-final was ridiculous. Like, he's incredible. And like, it's when you see what he did in counties where their talent base is limited, you'd love to see what he would have done in a big county with full playing resources. Like, but he was meticulous in every element of planning what he did, and he had to, because he was dealing with counties with much limited playing resources as others.
Yeah, I mean, I spent time with him last summer. I had a live show on Pucon in Galway, and his wife Angela was there as well, a Tip woman, and sure, great evening. Even after the show, had a couple of drinks with him, Michael Verney, and Michael Verney's uncle Kevin, who sadly passed away there in the last week or so as well. So sitting at the table with two men who sadly passed away. But he's just great fun, and he always had different stories about Tipperary lads and his time in Aherlow. And I actually have one of the stories where he was talking about his time in Aherlow. I might just play it here. I'll just get it up on screen, and we'll just have a quick little listen. Players that you managed over the years, you must have come across some unusual characters and some funny situations. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, well, there was one we was in Aherlow, and they're a hard crowd to handle, the crowd in Aherlow, if you know them in Tipperary. But anyway, one particular guy, he's Kieran MacDonald, he played for me. He'd be one of the best cornerbacks I ever had, but his brother was on the team, and he was a little bit eccentric, we'll just say. And anyway, he was late for the match. We were playing a county semi-final, and out he came, and we were at the top end warming up, and the opposition were at the other side, and the ball, Chris anyway, headed straight down to the other side and started kicking around with the opposition. And we had to tell him to come on up. He had to be called. He had actually taken a couple of kicks, and he started realising, hold on a minute, I don't recognise any of these guys, but we called him anyway, and he came on up. And the irony of it is that he's an airline pilot now. He flies plane for a living. But I can tell you this, if I'm on any plane and his name is mentioned as a pilot, I'm getting off. Yeah, he was a character, and actually, I met him at a wedding only 2 months ago, and he was wearing a kilt. He's lived in Scotland for the last 2 or 3 years, and he's wearing a kilt now. So that's the kind of character he is.
For more exclusive content,
good, like a good character. It's just, he's great fun, very personable guy. His wife is a lovely woman as well, really tough on her and the entire family. But you were telling me just before we started the show, you were about to tell me about the first time that you went and met with him. So you'll be able to recall that for us.
Yeah, I suppose when he got the job in late 2015, like he was, when they were launching, I think they were the friends of Tipperary football, where I think were launching a fundraising drive throughout the 4 divisions, and Liam went to every one of those meetings. Like he went to, I think it was in Ballycommon where that first meeting was on, and like he was just you were sitting down with him for about half an hour, and he was just so engaging and so honest, and his knowledge of all the Tip players was incredible. And I get after every match and stuff, like he'd always come up to you, and like he'd say his piece. Like he never shied away from things with maybe opponents, or even with the county board themselves. Like in terms of, maybe, I know back then the club under 21 football championship was usually played in the spring opposite the National League, and he was always maybe critical at the time of those games and impacting on some players. And of course in 2016 he really fought his corner over, I think that was the time when the club championships and the inter-county football championships more or less went hand in hand, and if there was a gap in the schedule, you played club games. And I think there was a round of club hurling 2 weeks before the Mayo semi-final, and they really backed down and said, no, we're not playing. And look, I suppose he was right, because it was the biggest game prior to, I suppose, the semi-final in 2020. But look, I just think that ride in 2016, like to beat Cork, I know there's very, very limited footage of that game, which is crazy. Like that was the game that kicked it all off, like beating Cork for the first time in 72 years. And I think that Kerry mentality he brought, that he never feared Cork. So he brought that into that group of players. Like, you've nothing to fear. And just the manner in which they did it, like they destroyed Cork for 50 minutes. I think they were 8 or 9 points up. Then got white line fever towards the end. I think they could see the 2-3 level going into injury time. So this is going to be another collapse. So we're going to lose this. Then they kicked 2 points at the very end to win the game, and that was a great buzz. And then beating Derry up in Cavan, and then just I suppose the Galway performance in Croke Park, where they picked apart Galway, and like that wasn't Tip playing carefree football. That was Kearns and Brian Lacey in the backroom. They picked apart Galway prior to that game. Everything that was done that day was pre-planned. The kickouts, the counter-attacks, the high ball into the square for Conor Sweeney's fist to goal. Like that was all pre-planned. And look, they performed in the semi-final too against Mayo. It just didn't get a rub of the green that day with the Robbie Kiley black card, and I think the second Mayo goal was a bit of a miss kick by Conor O'Shea, like so, and then it flew into the corner of the net. So it's just brilliant times, and you just love to have seen what he would have done with a full Tip hand if you had O'Brien, if you had O'Riordan, if Peter Atchison hadn't departed after that campaign to go away, if Kieran MacDonald had been able to stay fit, what they could have done maybe the year after. Because you think in 2017 he had no midfield essentially. Like Hannigan was injured, Atchison was gone, there was loads of injuries, and he was the right man at the right time. It's just so sad for him, and it's so sad for those Offaly players too. And I know there was Shane Stapleton, his coach. There was a good few of them due to meet up in Thurles next Saturday after the league game, and that's not going to happen. Like, and I'm sure it'll be somber, and there'll be happy memories, but also sad memories too. And as you say, it'll be a strange occasion, but it's also going to be a serious occasion on Saturday, because both teams need the win for different reasons.
Yeah, and I know I've said it before, but like when Kearns was over the team and go back to around 14, and Tip were playing those big games against the likes of Galway and so on, and I think Galway was the day that Colin O'Riordan scored a couple of goals.
Yeah.
But and you kind of mentioned his coach Shane Stapleton from Golden, obviously the same name as myself, and Liam mistakenly was emailing me Tipperary's video analysis of the opposition and what have you. and I was replying to him saying, well, look, I enjoy you sending this, but I'm not sure you really want to be sending this to a journalist. But he didn't even cop the replies and just kept sending it to me. So I had a laugh at him last year about that as well. But like you said, it is very serious business this weekend in terms of the football itself, because Offaly, they're trying to push for promotion. Tipperary are in a three-way dogfight for relegation down to Division 4. Antrim are on 2 points. Tip and Longford are on 1 apiece. So Tip could really do with a result here. Martin Murphy is going to be managing Offaly this weekend. He was previously manager of Port Arlington. He was an under-21 selector under Liam Kearns. So he knows the players very well there. Do you get any sense from Tip's... I mean, it's very difficult to look too deep into this and see a big Tipperary win, because there's been 1 draw, 4 defeats by an average of 8 points per game there. So there's not too much to go on to suggest there's going to be a huge Tip performance here.
It's a strange one. Like, I was just looking at the Tip line out against Fermanagh. Like, there's not many. In terms of Liam Kearns, there's not many players still there from his time. Like, it was 2019 when he finished up. You're probably looking. Michael O'Reilly was there, Shane O'Connell, Jimmy Feehan, Emma Maloney, Kevin Fahey, Conor Shaughnessy. Jack Kennedy probably would have been there towards the start. So, like, you would think, okay, there's, I suppose, Conor Sweeney and Stephen O'Brien technically on the panel, even though they're on the injured list. So, like, they'd be familiar with them. So, look, they'll probably maybe use that emotion to try and drive themselves on. But, like, you would think that of the 2 games, like, Tip have to win at least one of their last 2, really, to put the pressure on both Antrim and Longford. So, with Westmeath to finish up, you think this is their best chance. But you've got to think that if there's anything within this Offaly group, like, they've been playing pretty well as it is, like, they will be wanting to win for Liam this weekend. And, like, as difficult as the task it was going to be for an out-of-form Tip to win, it's probably going to be even harder. So I'd be one of those who looks at these type of games when you see maybe a team like Offaly who have something to play for more than a win, that they're not going to be denied. And, like, it's the circumstances, while also difficult for Tip, it's probably going to even play even harder against them, if you know what I mean. Yeah, like, I'd be sort of I'm one of those that believes in fate from time to time, that it's just a result is going to happen for Offaly whatever way it's going to happen. Maybe if there's a match they're going to be ever focused for this year, it's going to be this one.
Yeah, so get your comments in if you have any comments on any of the games, or any tributes to Liam, please do get them in. And the Tipperary hurlers, we were both there at the weekend, Saturday, a 423 to 25 point win over Waterford. Jake Morris with a hat-trick. Of course, he had the red card for Jamie Barron. Conor Bowe got the other goal as well. We've had a few days to reflect on it now. How do you look back on it?
I get a sense of contentment, and it's we're sort of in a lovely place at Tip at the moment. I don't know if you'd agree that we're progressing, but there's nobody losing the run of ourselves, which is very strange for Tipperary hurling when we're building. Like, usually there's a bit of hype and people get carried away, but it is I think everybody's still fairly well grounded. Look, it was great to beat Waterford in that 5-game losing run. Scored 423, but then on the flip side, you look at Waterford hit more wides. If they had taken their couple of goal chances at the start of the second half when they were completely on top, that game could have gone another way. But look, in fairness to Tip, they dug it out, particularly like that sticky spell the first 15 minutes of the second half when they couldn't get their hands on the ball. Like, they went too direct from half back into the forward line, especially when Tyke de Burke went back as a sweeper. It took us a long time to cop that he was gone back as a free man. And, like, the one thing you can't do, you can't give Waterford free possession coming out of the backs, because they will work the ball up the field through the hands and they'll find the open man. Caleb Lyons, Jack Prendergast really picked us apart. So, but look, it was a good win for Tip. We're still finding our way. Look, it wasn't the first choice 15 either, but look, I think we saw enough to know that there's a very, very good panel building. I know you were there, and you were sitting beside the Waterford Brigade. So, look, it was good, I suppose, ahead of the Munster Championship game between the sides. But look, there's going to be water under the bridge before we play. It'll be the last match of the game. So I don't think it's going to count for an awful lot in that great scheme of things.
Yeah, Liam Cahill said after the match, the honesty of the lads showed there. The physical stakes were really good. These boys train hard, and we're always trying to bring our training game out onto the field. There was lots of intensity out there for a game in the middle of March with weather conditions, not where they will be come May when we do battle again. I suppose it was a nice taster for what's coming down the tracks. Davy Fitz said of his Waterford team that he saw patches that were encouraging. It doesn't take a genius to figure out we should hit the net. I think we had a couple of really good goal chances between the first half and the second half. The difference is Tip finished theirs and we finished ours. Tip are a really good team. They're going to cause some trouble in that championship, let me tell you. So I just want to look through the goal chances that Waterford had. So early in the game, you might remember that Stephen Bennett broke in behind the Tip 45, we'll say. He soloed through, and we were kind of looking at it, that Deise Hutchinson was running over to the corner flag, obviously to create space because he dragged his man away, but he wasn't in position to receive possession then. So that was the first goal chance. Bennett ended up kind of panicking and dithering and ended up just taking a wild shot. He was blocked down. Then there was Caleb Lyons. He had a goal chance where he soloed through and he was hooked by Ronan Maher. Then there was a couple of goal chances in the second half. Jack Prendergast, from a narrow angle, he shot low and wide. And then Neil Montgomery shot low and wide from a very narrow angle. Those two chances, I would have said, they forced the goal.
There was one that went 2 inches over the bar too as well, I think. So
yeah, so I would have thought that like Tip's goal chances were far clearer, and Waterford's, a couple of them were forced. A few of them were, there was chances there, but they kind of butchered them. And to be fair, a good hook from Ronan Maher. I would have said Tip's goal chances were far more clear-cut. And I agree to some degree with what Davy's saying there, but Tip's goal chances were of a far higher quality.
Oh, yeah. Look at those. You're probably looking at the caliber of Morris and Bow. There were clinical finishes. Like Prendergast isn't probably an inside forward of a finisher. I suppose if Deise Hutchinson had got the ball, the Caleb Lyons is a backman who get sort of a big wind-up swing, I think. So it allowed Ronan Maher to get back for the hook. Neil Montgomery's not a natural finisher. He's more of a workhorse swing forward. But I suppose that'll be the encouraging thing for Davy. They got into positions, but he'll be hoping come the championship, if those opportunities arrive, that they'll put him away. I don't know the tactic of Deise Hutchinson further out the field, whether that was to throw a Tip off the summer. I'd like to think come the big games that it'll be Hutchinson and probably Patrick Fitzgerald closer to the goal, because there he's two natural finishers. Stephen Bennett's not a natural finisher.
Hutchinson has destroyed Tip a few times in recent years.
Yes, but then on the flip side, I'd be saying Davy's style won't be conducive of getting early ball into him. If they're going to work the ball up the field, you're going to get opposition defend. The opposition defenders will be back in numbers, or there'll be bodies in the way there, which he tries an open space, and maybe one-on-one matchups, so. It'll be fascinating to see how Waterford go in their first Munster Championship matches before they come back to play Tip. I don't, just looking ahead to next weekend, I don't see Waterford beating Kilkenny. I think Davy's more than happy now after next weekend to go away and getting ready for Limerick, especially with the injuries that they have. Plus, I think the Waterford 21s are playing next week, so I'd say Mark Fitzgerald and Patrick Fitzgerald will probably be held back for that, maybe to allow them. Because isn't there a new regulation now? You can't play with the new Congress ruling. You can't play 3 matches in 7 days or something. Or they'll probably play Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, because they won't be playing. Provided they don't beat Kilkenny, then they can't play the following weekend in the league semi-final. So I suppose that man, the likes of him and maybe John Kiley and a few managers that are carrying 20s have a little bit of work to do on how they maybe use those players over the next few weeks.
I would say that Davy Fitz would not like to lose another game, especially against, in relative terms, big hitters, Tipperary and Kilkenny. So again, I want to revisit the conversation where before the start of the league, I said Tip will get out of Munster. Yeah. Are you beginning to believe more and more? I know you're coming on side the last while.
Yeah, look, it's still going to be difficult. I think the schedule is tough. Like it is. Look, it's. I just think starting away. While you say starting away from home is hard. Okay, in the flip side, you say the pressure then is on Cork and Clare to get the wins because they're the home teams, and that you've got to carry home advantage, if you know what I mean. But like we've Limerick at home, which is going to be tough. Watford at home to finish. So look, I definitely think we're in the shake-up there now. There's no doubt about it. Like we have a strong panel. We're getting a greater feel. Like I'm not going to get too bogged down on our starting 15 because we're going to have 5 good players to come off the bench to finish the game out. But like we're getting a better feel for it, all right. It's like I think it looks like Breen will be our full back. But he'll be interchangeable.
Didn't have a great game the other day, did he? Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of Michael Breen, but I did feel the other day a couple of times things didn't happen for him. Give away a few frees, turned a few times.
Yeah, but I don't think they're. The thing is, if you don't start in full back, I don't think you can start in wing back. I don't think he's shown enough of wing back either. I think they're going to go with him there, and they'll have O'Mara or Ronan Maher as a fallback option. I think I just get the feeling that that's the way they're going. So like it's, I suppose let's put back to last weekend. Like you have like Morris is lethal, Mark Keogh again, very good coming off the bench. Bonner Maher full forward. I just think the forward line I think just knits better when he's there. Just gives them a great steady-handed full forward. Like Jason Ford was ridiculous off the bench. He's so sharp this year. And then you have Gerard O'Connor is playing well. He's getting more confident with every game. So look, we have serious options in the forwards. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Now I don't know if it can be trusted Wikipedia, but it says here that Jake Morris has 4 championship goals ever for Tipperary. I'm not entirely sure if that's true. And wasn't he denied one against Wexford in the 2019 semi-final? Yeah. But I mean, that hat-trick the other day, that was kind of, again, you know, when he gets that ball on the right-hand side, like the only one he missed was on his left-hand side, but he is fairly lethal. Like this is the type of forward. Like he's still only 23 years of age, which is mad. He's 24 in May. But he's showing signs now, especially the way Tipper playing, running, taking on the man, giving it to him on the shoulder. Yeah. Like this could be a big year for Jake Morris.
Like he's gas. He's a player that actually, there's an awful lot of you're either a fan of his or people are very frustrated by him. But God, I think there's so much of an upside. Like I think the one aspect of his game that I think frustrates, and he did it again a couple of times against Waterford, where he tries to the ball is coming and he tries to let it run by him to get in behind it, and intercounty cornerbacks just won't buy that. Like you get away with that at club level against inferior defenders, but a good quality inter-round defender is not going to buy that. They'll know what Jake is at. He's trying to let the ball slide by and then he's in behind him. Like he's got to get that out of his game. Like he's got to go and try and meet it at its highest point and win it or break it down for somebody else. But like in terms of a finisher, he's lethal. Like he's so confident in his own ability. Like I was thinking about him yesterday that Jake Morris could take on 10 shots and drive 10 of them wide, but he'll still take on the 11th shot. Like he's so confident in his own ability. Like, and like for me, he's a championship starter every day in the week, but he has his flaws, but he's a goal scorer. And like if a goal scorer in modern hurling, when goals are so hard to come by, is gold, in my view. Like, and like if he comes out of a game, maybe having only touched the ball 5 times, but he scored 2-2, that'll do for me.
Like you would have to say that there was only 3 points in it when the red card happened for Jamie Barron. I don't know if that explains a bit of a collapse from Watford, but that's what happened. There's no need to get carried away with this performance, though. I think when a lot of it was in the latter stages, Tip just pulled away.
Yeah, look, the game was and even after we got the 2 goals in quick succession to go 6 up, I think Watford got. Even though Waterford down to 14 men, they picked us off for a couple of very easy scores, even with 14 men. So, like, I do sense we had turned the tide a small bit, even after the red card. Jason Ford had come on. He was very impactful. Connor Bowe, even on his 10 minutes, was very, very lively as well. So I think we might have just got over the line, because I think we were always threatening scores in that last 10 minutes, even before the red card. So no, it was great, and I think I mentioned it last week. Especially with the schedule that's coming, and you don't want to be overtaxing lads. Like, to be able to go to Antrim now next weekend and not having to put out a full strength team, knowing 90% certain you're probably going to be playing Limerick on next Saturday week in a semi-final, like that, he'll be able to maybe hold back key guys. He'll be able to maybe hold back guys that have got an awful lot of minutes but could do with a rest. Like, I would think Michael Breen should be probably rested for this week. I think he's probably played. He's definitely played in every game, and I'm not sure he could have played every minute of the league and Munster League so far. He doesn't need to play in this game. Ronan Maher doesn't need to play in this game. Noel McGrath doesn't. Bonner doesn't. Jake Morris could probably sit it out as well. Like, I don't think he'll go.
Game for like John McGrath, give him a full game. Maybe give Bonner Maher another game as well. Yeah. Like, obviously you're the president of the Bonner Maher fan club, but he did do very well the other day.
I don't know. I'd hold him back too. I think I'd hold him back for Limerick. It's like the older guys don't need to be overtaxed. It's like, I was just looking at the team from last weekend. Rhys Shelley probably will get another run because he only played one game. Johnny Ryan, he's probably played an awful lot of games. I maybe would give him a rest, maybe bring Conor McCarthy in. I'd like to see maybe James Quigley go at full back. Haven't seen an awful lot of him. Plus, he get a good test off those Antrim forwards. Like, so Owen Connolly, he'll probably start again. Dan McCormack has sort of been in and out of the team, so you'd be looking maybe 10, 11 changes, but you'd still have a bit of experience there. Dan McCormack, maybe Brian O'Mara, I'd start again because he was held back in a few games. I'd maybe Conor Stapleton, having missed a few games for injury, I keep him there. Maybe John Campion start with him in the middle of the field. Maybe Podge Campion come into the half-back line. Alan Tynes played a lot of minutes, so I'd maybe hold him back too. But like you have, as you say, in the forwards, like John McGrath to come in. Mark Keogh would like to start. If Conor Bowe's injury is not too bad, he'd like to start. You have Ender Heffernan, Keano Kelly was named on the bench for the first time in the league this year. So like, it's probably a good game for him maybe to come in the half forward line. And Sean Ryan, who were both very impressed with at the start of the campaign, probably a game for him too. So like, I do think you'll probably see maybe 4 or 5 of the team that's played against Waterford. They'll be start, but there'll be changes. I do, because like I think I mentioned, I think the Limerick game, assuming they don't lose to Waterford or Wexford, is absolutely ideal, because Tip won't be expected to win, but if we do, it's great. If we lose narrowly and perform well, you have 4 weeks then to build into the first round of the game. Once like, it's assuming you don't lose badly in a league semi-final to a Limerick, that game is absolutely perfect for Tip.
Yeah, and River Power comments on that. He says, are Stephen Bennett, Deise Hutchinson and Ozzie Gleeson going to be completely off the boil again in the summer? I don't think so. Getting a game against Limerick is vital to know where Tip are, and also says of this weekend, Sean Ryan, Keano Kelly and Enda Heffernan should play against Antrim. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Tipperary could really do with a game against Limerick. Just really show, like, for Liam Cahill to just find out, like, he knows what it's like coming up against Limerick from his Waterford days, but how is it going to work out with his Tip players rather than with the previous lads he had there? Waterford, they'll obviously kind of galvanise themselves and come back again this summer. So is there anything that you like? Would you be overly concerned about how this weekend goes? I'd say from Cal's point of view, in terms of building the panel, even if he makes huge changes, he'll want to see a very good performance.
Oh, I think I would be wary that Tip there's a potential upset here, because it's Antrim, they're at home, they're already safe from relegation, and I think Darren Gleeson will look back to last year and think, I'd say it hurt him to have to bring a weakened Antrim team down to Thurles that day, because they had the relegation match the following week. He held a few guys back. I think he'll say to the guys, you're going, okay, it might assuming it's not a full strength Tip team, he'll say to lads, "You're owed this. Tip are not at full strength. Go out and beat these guys." And imagine the momentum they would have from beating any Tip team going into the Leinster Championship. I think he will. It's like after this, Antrim's they'll have a 4-week gap into playing. Is it Dublin they have first or Galway? I can't remember what the schedule is in Leinster. Like they'll relish this, like, and they'll want to build on the win over Laois. And if they could finish the league with 2 wins, they'll really take that. Like so, like. You'd like to think Tip have enough ability, whatever team that's put out, to beat them, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Antrim ended up winning on Sunday.
Yeah. So that could be an interesting match just to see how
There's great. It's not just the Darren Gleeson thing, but I think there's always been a very, very close bond between Tipperary and Antrim going down through years. Even go back to the 89 All-Ireland final. The fact that is it Lockheed Shamrocks, I think, wear the Tip colours. So there's always been a very, very close affinity, I think, when Tip and Antrim. So I think that there'll be a big Tip crowd going up at the weekend. I think a few people have said it was the first match they look for on the schedule just for an away day. Like a lot of people probably haven't been up there for a league game. So
Lockheed wear red and white. So
there's one club up there that wears the Tip colours. I can't remember who.
Like, I know, I'm picturing it as well.
I
think it's O'Donovan Rasa. I think you might be right on that. There was another point I was going to make as well. Will Darren Gleeson be on the Tipperary bus heading up? Spare a bit of petrol, be handier.
I do. I suppose I'd say Tip will be going up the night before, like, so there'll be. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Cahill is going to use this as maybe a bit of a bonding weekend or something. Take the whole group, maybe go up Friday night or something. Because, it's one of those games where you take advantage of the fact you maybe have to go a fair distance away, like so, and maybe even go for 2 nights, like sort of make it a real sort of, you could get the maximum benefit of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, tough one for Seamus Callanan to pick up another injury, and it seems one injury after the next. He's not getting a clear run at it, and I suppose most of us expect that this will probably be his final season with Tipperary. Obviously, he's been on the road since 2008, but maybe he will stay around for another season as well. But to pick up an injury at this stage, it's a difficult one. There's a lot of people vying for a couple of positions there. It's going to be tough for him to force his way back in.
Yeah, it's his ear. I think it was around this time last year. I think it was in the training session before the Waterford game in round 4 where he got that finger injury, and he was ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks. And now it's after happening again. And yeah, it's a tough one. He probably needed every minute he was going to get, because he looked sharp from what we saw the last day, like the way he turned the Waterford defender inside out for the goal chance. But I suppose at his age, he needs every minute he can get just to get his sharpness up, and he's not going to get it. Like, you're probably thinking the Clare game is probably out at this stage, so he's probably looking at the Cork game on May the 6th to probably be available for, and even at that, he's going to have very, very limited game time. He'll probably come back onto the bench, but it's tough for him. He must be so frustrated, thinking he needed a clean run going into the championship, just to probably be pushing to get on the starting team. I was thinking of my starting 15 now for Clare. If everybody was fit, he probably wouldn't be on my starting 15. I'm not thinking for what Cahill and the management might do, but he would have been a valuable asset coming off the bench. And he's probably not going to be that option now.
And any other players that might have impressed you particularly over the course of the games we've seen so far? I mean, Gerard O'Connor has done himself no harm as well. I'd say he'll start come championship. I can, like Alan Tynan maybe hasn't kind of been
Connor
quite.
Stapleton for me is nailed. He's nailed on. Do you know the one thing, if you notice about him, he's very good at drift. When the play gets into the forward line, he's very good at drifting, making that run from deep. He always seems to be there. As he got 2 points the last day, and I think it were both in the second half, and he did it against Laois as well, where he's sort of the guy that drifts in from midfield as the option to take the pass, if you know what I mean. He's just always seems to be there. The out ball, and he can snap over an easy point. He's just very, very elusive. So he's for a guy a few years ago,
You would have thought nippy forward, wouldn't you? Like, he couldn't be more different now than what he used to be.
And I'd be talking to a few Thurles lads a few years ago, even after that under-21 where he got that scrappy goal against Cork to win that game. Like, he sort of fell off the radar. Even within Thurles, he was struggling to get on their team. But really, in the last couple of years, the penny has really dropped with him, and like he's going very, very well. Like, so, like you're probably looking Stapleton +1 in the middle of the field, like, and you have Tynan there. I'd still think maybe that's where Seamus Kennedy might end up permanently, because I don't know, he's busy in games, but I'm not sure if we're getting the best out of him as a deep line half forward, if you know what I mean.
Some of his cover and runs, though, like there was a few times that Watford players broke through it. That's something that's killed Tipperary the last few years against Watford. And Kennedy was the one hunting lads down. So I'd say it's that sort of diligence that appeals to the management team also. Right, so you wanted to talk as well about the league format. Like, we're going into this weekend, and the only game that actually, I mean, obviously there's a small bit of doubt in terms of like whether Limerick will get through. But look, it needs an unlikely run of results for Limerick to not go through. And then also it's a case with Kilkenny against Waterford. That's a bit of a shootout to get into a league semi-final. But everything else is decided. So, I mean, that takes an awful lot of jeopardy away from this weekend.
Yeah, I suppose it's just it's a freak, really, that you have a lot of sort of head-to-heads. Like, if Clare were to beat Cork, but then even if Limerick lost, Limerick would have Clare on head-to-head. So, like, it's not that as if, like, there's an awful lot of those things where head-to-head results have things knocked out, even for certain teams. I think Clare probably know their campaign is done. Cork know they have a league semi-final, so that's a dead game. Westmeath know they're bottom. Galway know even with a win, head-to-head, they're going to lose out to Limerick. Like, so that probably is why Limerick are probably safe enough, even if they were to. In the unlikely event they lost at home to Wexford, like, so. I know there's an awful lot of talk about it. I know Don Logue was on about it. No, he wasn't. Sorry, that was the Kildare thing. But to be honest, I'm actually a fan of this format, because I know there are people saying that the games aren't competitive enough, we're not seeing enough. But what are we looking? If we went back to an old top six Division 1, you're not just creating another championship type format, but ahead of what's coming down the line, if you know what I mean. I think it's actually ideal where you're allowing every county's going to get probably 2 or 3 games in it where they'll go against a strong team, but they're going to have 1 or 2 maybe where they're weak and where they can develop players. They can they're not having to put out their strongest 15 every day. Like, I'm actually a fan of it, if you know what I mean. I just think it allows counties to breed. Like, the league always, even under its old guys, was a development for the championship. So I don't know why people want the league to be a championship Mark II, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but my thought on it would be get rid of the pre-season, play the league slightly earlier, make it a bit shorter, and then just have a longer championship with more games in there. That'd be more my thought. Because, like, what other competition in the world spends half its time playing friendlies?
Maybe, but extend the championship. Sure, how would you extend it as in its current guise? It gets 4 games in 6 or 7 weeks, like, so. Well,
I'd have Leinster table, Munster table. Once they've played each other, merge it together, and then all the Leinster and Munster teams play each other. Top 2 go into All Ireland semi-finals. 3 to 6 All Ireland quarterfinals, and then the rest into relegation.
Oh, I don't know if that's a lot of extra games, like, so.
Yeah, but if you got rid of the pre-season and cut the league in half, it'd still end up being the same amount of games, but they'd actually be meaningful.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that it wouldn't be a bad idea if the Croke Park got all the inter-county managers into a room next August or September. Okay, some counties mightn't have a manager then, but just got a consensus of what. Because, like, you probably think inter-county manager now will probably you have a fair idea he's probably going to be speaking for the inter-county manager next year or the year after. Right? They'll all be thinking, like, I think probably the 2-week gap from the league final to the first round of the Munster and Leinster is too short. That's a problem. I think it's got to be at least 3 weeks. I don't know. There's probably an envy in terms of what we're seeing from the National Football League, but that's not overly competitive either. Like if Kerry are not putting out this full strength team, like Kerry got a weakened team going up to Mayo, like so. But then people are probably because hurling has a different issue that we need to give Antrim and Laois and Westmeath. We need to expose them to the top teams. Whereas if you go back to just having a top 6 or top 8 where it's just a closed shop of the strong teams, it's like how are those teams going to develop? It mightn't set the pulses racing for Tip to be playing Antrim and Laois, and it won't set the supporters pulses racing. But then you look at last weekend, there was only 5,000 in Thurles for Tip and Waterford. Only 5,000 like that. That's pitiful. And you look at the Football League, you're getting 10 and 15,000 for every Mayo home game. Like it's.
But maybe that's because the league in its format is unappealing because there's no jeopardy in it, and we kind of know who's going through already.
But there's no real jeopardy in the Football League either. Only in the bottom of Division 2 and the top of Division 3.
Yeah, but the teams seem to be going fairly hard for it. Anyway, we could talk about this one all day. The Tipperary Camogie team this weekend have a match up against Clare. So Tip obviously had a first defeat against Cork the last day at 114 to 112. So, Dennis Kelly was obviously a little disappointed, but he felt it was a humdinger and it was a sort of game that his team want. But they'll be looking to reverse the fortunes this weekend.
Yeah, I think this is I know playing Cork were one of the big three. I think it's a great testing ground, and they were very competitive for a lot of that game and lost by 2 points. But I think this is the game I think is a great measuring stick for Tip, because last year in the championship in the league, Munster Championship, they played Clare 3 times, they drew twice and lost once. And in the 2 games they drew, I thought Clare looked slightly the better team. So I think this is a great measuring stick. Like if Tip were able to take care of Clare, and there's a Clare team that also beat Kilkenny in the first round of the league show, and they were very good against Galway for long stages in the last round. So look, Clare have Tip's measure, and they played a brand of hurling, a Camogie last year against Tip that Tip found very, very hard. It was a lot of the running game that Clare hurlers play, short passing. Like a lot of the Camogie teams don't do that, and they caught Tip out a bit. So it'd be interesting to see how Tip handle it. And if Tip win this game, they're not quite in a league final, but they still have Kilkenny to play, but they're effectively in a league semi-final against Kilkenny and going into the last round. So you'd be hoping that, especially if it's their last home game, use it in their get a win and move on to Kilkenny in the final round.
Yeah, and Dennis Kelly was pointing out that the way the format had gone, they basically played 3 games in a fortnight, so it was good to get a bit of a weekend off. The Tip minor side in Camogie lost to Kilkenny by a point last weekend, so that's fairly agonising way to come a cropper.
Yeah, sure. Like they were ahead the whole way and conceded 1-1 in injury time, and like they lost in the All-Ireland semi-final by a point last year as well. So it just seems to be the same story for a lot of Tip teams when they get to the big teams. Like same with Tip seniors a few weeks ago against Cork, always losing by 1 or 2 points. And so hopefully they're way up in Dublin on Sunday in round 2. So hopefully they'll pick up the first win there and get back on the horse. So that minor A championship is round robin, 6 teams, everyone plays each other. So and the top 4 go to the semi-final. So that defeat wasn't fatal, but if they don't beat Dublin, they'll be under pressure maybe to get in that top 4.
Yeah, and the final thing we'll talk about this weekend is the Tipperary ladies footballers. So this weekend it's a clash against Tyrone.
Yeah, they had a 3-week break after they played 5 matches in 6 weeks. So they'll be refreshed and ready to go again. They're playing Tyrone at home in Fethard on Sunday. Big game for Tip now, because if they win that, it's a showdown at home to Armagh the following weekend, and that's the key game in the group. The top 2 go to the final, and the winner of the league final gets promoted to Division 1. So you'd be probably thinking maybe the last 3 weeks, Peter Creedon and the girls would have been really knuckling down, getting a lot of good training in, and getting hit for these really 2 key games. And look, hopefully if Tip get the win, having home advantage for Armagh the following weekend would be massive. And I'm sure they're getting great crowds in Fethard for for the home games. Like, it's with the weather the way it is at the moment, like having that all-weather facility down there is such a godsend. Like, and they're used to it, so hopefully they can pick up the win there. Just before we go, I just noticed her friend Derek Lynch on tweeting there earlier on about the fact that the Tip under-21s and minors are due to start next week in the Munster Championship. They're due to start away in Clare and 6 Mile Bridge next Tuesday and Wednesday, but looks like Clare are going to have to give up home advantage because the I don't know whether it's the pitch or the floodlights in 6 Mile Bridge are either not. Whether I don't know, there's an issue with them, and of course you have night games. There's no other facility in Clare to take them, so they might have to. Tip might end up having home games next week, which would be a great help for them because we know. I think that Clare under-21, I think that Clare minor team, they have a good few of the crew that lost the penalties in Tip in the Munster final last year still eligible. So if Tip didn't have to go to Clare for that one, I don't think they'd mind. I know we'll probably preview the under-20 game next Wednesday show because they're playing on the Wednesday night. So we'll probably have a team and stuff for that week. But I don't know. I think Tip have 18 players underage from the under-20 squad for this year, which is. And it's a nice ball of experience to still have. Yeah,
no harm at all. I was just thinking there about the Tyrone ladies who've come down to Tipperary to Feathered. Obviously, they'd probably prefer to be going somewhere more in the northern end of the county, but give or take, if you were to go from Omagh, it'd take you about 4 hours.
Yeah.
So that is a fair old trek. Right, we've a load covered there. So that's it for Tippcast this week. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian. And like Shane said, we'll be back next Wednesday. Thanks very much, Shane.
Cheers.